All right, everyone. So we are entering what I like to call the event frenzy in Raid Shadow Legends, and this is actually turning into a theme of things that Plarium seems to like to do and repeat, especially when it comes to the fusion event. So if you actually take a look at the fusion calendar, for the last several fusions, they've really run things very similar. So they've been releasing these news posts where they'll actually tell us what the fusion is, as well as the champions that we need for the fusion, what events those champions are going to come from, as well as when those events are going to run. And I've noticed now through the last several fusions that they kind of run these pretty similarly. They'll usually start off with just a couple of events, but one big one, like the champion training one, is usually one they release very early on in the fusion because it takes a lot of effort and resources to kind of work your way through it. But then when we get to sort of the midway point through the actual fusion, they like to really bombard us with a lot of events all at once. And that is actually what is going to be happening later tonight. So if you take a look at the event screen, you guys will see that we still have a bit less than a week on this Dungeon Divers event. But this is a big one, 8,000 points. So very similar to the champion training event. This is going to be one that you're going to want to slowly be working through because you need a lot of points for it. We still have 4 days left on that champion training event. That's the big one, the 30,000 point one. And later tonight, we have the Arena Assault and the Summon Rush event beginning. Now, we also have another summoning-related event beginning, but you guys don't actually see it up in-game right now. It'll probably be an official news post in the next couple of hours or maybe in the early morning at the latest. And that is, we are going to be getting another one of those 10x summoning events. Now, these have been a theme. They've released many of these. This one is going to be specifically for the Valkyrie Legendary Champion, one of the best legendaries of the game, but my opinions about this event really have not changed since these events have really come out. Now, it's going to be really tempting, especially with all the insanity that is going on in Raid Shadow Legends. We have a lot of events going on, including that Summon Rush, but my suggestion to almost all of you guys is it's still not going to be worth it. Now, the only exception is 2 groups of people that I think that it might actually be worth summoning on in this event. But I guarantee you guys that's not going to be most people watching this video, just a very select number. And those 2 exceptions are, first of all, if you are either a whale or you are somebody who is really almost done with collecting pretty much all the champions of the game. And these are really going to apply to people who spend a lot of money or who have been playing for a really long time, or both. And if Valkyrie is just one of the very few champions that you are looking for and you pretty much have all the other legendaries and you're not really looking for any of them, then this event actually does make sense, because if you pull a lot of legendaries during a double rates event, they're all going to be dupes, and if you're really trying to get a specific legendary, okay. But again, this is mostly to whales, people who've been playing for a long time, and it just doesn't apply to the vast majority of people. Now, the other group of people that I would consider maybe pulling on this event is people who are working on the fusion and unfortunately missed out on a very specific champion. So if you go to the fusion here and you guys are trying to fuse and you realize, oops, I somehow did not get a Seducer. Unfortunately, Seducer was available from the Artifact Enhancement event, but it ended last night. So if that's going to be like the only champion that you're going to be missing for this fusion and you have no other way to get a Seducer to fuse the Suai Firstborn, you are going to be able to get Suai Firstborn as a whole epic champion without having to fuse up the rares to get her, specifically from that Summon Rush event. Now, I would only really do this if you are like super close. If this is going to be the only champion that you need and it's just going to be super painful because you'll have gotten everything else, but you'll be 1 champion short of the fusion. Okay, you know what? In that case, sure. Go ahead and do some summons, get the points, get the champion, and do the fusion. But I would still recommend that if you guys have mystery shards, for example, you can use these to get points for a summon rush without having to use your ancient voids and your sacreds, because you can save these more valuable shards for a ×2 event. Now, the vast majority of people, besides those 2 groups, I would save your shards. If you want to test your luck a little bit and do a couple of shard pulls just to see if maybe you're one of the chosen ones, okay, that's fine. But in terms of summoning a lot of shards, absolutely wait. And the numbers have changed a little bit, actually. These events, crazily enough, they actually get worse rather than better as they introduce more and more champions into the legendary pool, because the last time I talked about this, there were not as many champions in the legendary pool. So if we just take a quick glance here, we have 67 non-void legendaries and 21 void legendaries. Now, there's an important distinction because, of course, ancient shards, you can't pull void legendaries. But these events are actually better for void champions because there are way less void legendaries in the champion pool. Getting a massive rate up boost to a specific champion is going to actually give you a much higher chance in order to pull that champion in comparison to the non-void legendaries, where you're competing with so many other champions that even with the rate up, because there's so many other champions in the pool, you still don't really have that great of a chance to pull what you are looking for. So, my opinions shift when it comes to these events. For void champions, a little bit more of a positive outlook. I'd say might be worth a little bit better to summon. I still generally would wait, but a little bit better. For the non-void ones, though, and Valkyrie is not a void legendary, almost always going to skip it. Now, if you get into the specifics with a 10x event running for non-void champions, you have about a 13% chance of pulling that rate up legendary when you pull a legendary. Now, remember, we don't have any increased odds. So if you actually take a look here, you'll see 0.5% chance to get a legendary. That means that it takes on average about 200 ancient shards just to pull a legendary. Now, averages are always difficult because, you might get lucky, you might get unlucky. That's why I say if you want to do a couple pulls to see if you're the chosen one, that's totally fine. But it's important to know the averages so you guys can get an understanding of where the vast majority of people going for these events are going to fall. Most people are not going to get super lucky, and most people are not going to get super unlucky. Most people are going to fall close to those averages, and it's going to take 200 shards just to get a legendary. And then when you do get a legendary, you only have a 13% chance of it actually being a Valkyrie, even with this rate up event. Now, with the void events, you guys can see it is a little bit better. So you have about a 33% chance, or a 1 out of 3, of getting the rate up legendary. So up quite a bit from that 13% chance, which is why my opinions are a bit more positive for the void events rather than the non-voids. So if you actually want to know about how many ancient shards it'll take on average to pull a Valkyrie with this event going on, you're looking at about 760. That's a lot of ancient shards, even for a whale. You guys can see how these events are they're really difficult. And if you save those ancient shards for a ×2 event, you're going to get so many more champions. So going to the actual screen here, you'll have a 1% chance of getting a legendary. You'll have a 16% chance of getting an epic. That's something like 100 plus epics that you're going to get on average. That's going to be, 6-7 legendaries that you would get on average if you save that many ancients. You're just going to get so much more out of this by holding on to your shards. So unless you fall into one of those two categories that I mentioned, guys, save your shards. So now if we do take a look at Valkyrie, unfortunately, unfortunately for this event, she's a really good champion. So it's going to be even more tempting with everything going on to summon. She is one of the very few champions that does have the area of effect counterattack. I believe it is her, Martyr, and Skull Crusher, who's actually an epic, who have the area of effect counterattacks. She does have a good skill kit. Attacks one enemy 2 times, decrease the turn meter by 10% on each hit if the target has any buffs. Based off of attack and defense, you always want to make sure that you take a look at the actual skill and not just the champion menu, because this is an example where not only is the skill based off of defense, but it's also based off of attack as well. You have that counterattack, and her passive is very nice. This champion's turn meter will be increased by 10% each time an enemy champion places a buff. Enemy champions will have their turn meters decreased by 10% for each buff they receive. This really is an endgame champion, though, in Faction Crypt's defense. Not really that big of a deal. And I say that for people who are newer or intermediate and don't really have a fully fleshed out roster in Raid Shadow Legends, you don't need to be aiming for specific champions. You really just want to try to collect as many good and versatile champions as you can, rather than dumping all of your resources trying to go for one specific champion. This is kind of an endgame champion, an endgame goal, which is why these type of events, especially the 10x summoning one, it's really mostly geared towards people who are looking for very specific things out of this game at this point. They probably have a lot of the legendaries already. They don't really need that much. Another little warning as well is that includes a lot of YouTubers as well. So you might see a lot of YouTubers do polls just either for content and because it's fun to do polls. But also, a lot of people who are making YouTube videos are going to have a lot different goals, and they're going to be at a lot different places in the game than the vast majority of people who are playing the game. So keep that in mind, and always something to be mindful of when it comes to listening to opinions about these summoning events. So that's everything related to what is going on. We do have that spider tournament. I don't know if I mentioned this. This one actually does have a legendary book. So unlike the last couple of tournaments during this fusion, I don't think they did have legendary books. This one is actually probably going to be worth going for, considering you're going to want accessories for your champions anyway. Now, the last thing I want to end off with is predictions, because I always get a lot of questions and people asking, you know, Salt, do you know or do you have any idea of when the next ×2 event is going to be? You always say save your shards, but, you know, when are these events going to roll around? And I will say they generally roll around every couple of months or so, and they rotate them between the different shards. So, you know, you'll have your 2x for Ancients, your 2x for Voids, your 2x for Sacreds, and you'll have one of these pop up every few months. But we don't know which one it's going to be. Now, I'd like to say they stay consistent, but you guys know Plarium, they definitely don't. You know, we've had Ancients, Sacreds, then back to Ancients, then back to Sacreds, and then they'll skip Voids for a really long time. That's kind of the things that they do. So, unfortunately, just because we had, you know, one of them last time that was for this type of shard doesn't necessarily mean that the next one's going to be for a different type of shard. That's not really the way that Plarium does things. It's very strange, but my prediction still is, with the 1-year anniversary, we just got a whole bunch of stuff in the mailbox, goodies, gems. Not really super crazy, but they did mention in the actual anniversary post, I think they actually took it down, though. I don't think it's in the news announcements anymore. It's not. They did mention that there's going to be more to come. Now, my prediction, and this is not confirmed, if I knew for a fact that this was true, you guys know I will always be the first ones to tell you guys stuff as soon as I can. This is just my prediction, is that after this fusion is over and after we have this long series of events running alongside the fusion end, we're probably going to see some more stuff related to that actual anniversary, including, hopefully, another ×2 event. I know we're due for, I think it's Void Shards. It's been a while, but you guys, who knows, Plarium could do Ancient Shards again. So that's my prediction. Either way, still save your shards, and yeah, stay safe, everyone. I know there's a lot of crazy stuff going on in the world right now, so I just thought I would take a very quick second at the end of the video to say stay safe, everyone, and also thank you so much for the support. I know I made a community post on my channel a couple of days ago, kind of giving a little bit of personal info, which I generally don't do, about the situation that unfortunately I've been through in the last few days, and the amount of support that you guys showed was absolutely tremendous. So thank you very much for everything that you guys have done, including subscribing to my second channel and supporting the additional content that I'm trying to make, because I have a lot more time to spend on YouTube now. So you guys are absolutely awesome, and I really, really do appreciate it. So with that being said, that's going to be it for the video for today, though. Thank you once again. If you want to help out, tossing a subscribe means a lot, so thank you. Leaving a like as well helps out, and more Raid Shadow Legends videos should be popping up on the screen right about now. Feel free to check them out. We're getting really close to 200 on the channel, so thank you once again, and until next time, this is Salt of the Salty Guild, signing out.